Alrighty. Now we are going to move into our organizational updates. And before we do that, before you take over, Ephraim, just want to remind folks who maybe just come into the space. I know a couple of folks joined during the grounding. Um, Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're zooming in from, how you heard about tonight, and don't forget to feel free to sign up to be a member and receive all of our updates, including our digital monthly newsletter. And yes, there is a link to that video. I will drop it in the chat. But go ahead, Ephraim, take over with our org updates.
Yes, yes. Share that link out. I'm always reminded when we come into these monthly meetings and having that time really just to stop and meditate and just take a deep breath. It's always so good after a long day. I know it's Wednesday. I know it's later in the evening, so thank you all for joining us for that. Again, my name is Efrain Ortiz. Just have one update really for you all. One that I'm actually excited to share with you all. So save the date. Um, this year we want to do a lot more community in-person events. We'll be kicking off actually our first civic engagement workshop this Tuesday. I mean Tuesday, February 25th from 5 to 7 at our downtown LA office. And this one will be it's called From the Root Community Organizing 101. So we're gonna be going over tips and tools of community organizing to share with you all. This is something that is offered with the Institute of Impacted Leaders, but not everyone's able to join the Institute of Impacted Leaders. So we want to break it down into pieces and share with our community members. So this is open to all people, all our members. Anyone, invite a friend, bring a friend. It'll be again at our downtown LA office. And in the workshop, as I mentioned, we'll be exploring the principles of grassroots community organizing. So I know Adriana just dropped the RSVP. Yes, thank you very much for doing that. So definitely RSVP to secure a spot. And then after we'll be following up with you all soon. We should see some social media posts. So if you follow us on any social media, you will see it there. Share it with your friends, share it with the community, and just look forward to being a community with you all and building with you all.
Thank you, Ephraim. And no policy updates this month, but come back next month for our March monthly community meeting. And that meeting next month, we will be sort of unveiling our policy package for the year. Don't forget to RSVP. It is tinyurl.com/IJ meetings. We'll make sure to drop it in the chat too at the end of the meeting. But yeah, exciting stuff happening with IJ this year. So if you're in the LA area, make sure to RSVP for that workshop. And don't worry, we are actually going to be taking the show on the road this year. So we will be expanding to different locations with these workshops throughout the state in the first few months of the year. So sign up for our newsletter, y'all, so you can be the first ones to know where the next location is in March, April, May, June, all of that good stuff. So excitement, excitement. Any questions about the workshop or RSVPs? Beautiful. Awesome. All righty. Without further ado, I am going to bring up our special guest for the evening. We have Luke Blackburn, who is the Special Projects Coordinator for the California Black Power Network, and Jana Morehouse, who is the Policy Associate for the California Black Power Network. So they are joining us this evening, zooming in. So thank y'all for joining us. And they are going to be walking us through just a brief presentation about the California Black Power Network, but then we are also be going to get into a discussion with them as well, a little bit more about what the work that they do. So we really want to encourage you all to engage in this conversation as well. So if you see stuff on during their presentation, you hear something that you have a question about or you want a little bit more information on, please feel free to raise your hand or drop it in the chat. We will definitely be monitoring the chat for questions. So please feel free to engage with us in this conversation. So should be really, really exciting. Ephraim, can you spotlight our guests for me? And then we are going to turn it over to them to fully introduce themselves and provide all of that background information that they feel comfortable with, and then moving on into the presentation for the evening. Alrighty, take it away, y'all. And again, thank you so much for being here.
For sure. I'm Luke Blackburn. I'm with the California Black Power Network, as I was just introduced. I'm the regional organizer there for the Orange County area, Inland Empire, and the Central Valley as well. So I work specifically with the groups in those areas to provide resources on around the organizing and getting into the field work. I'll pass it to John real quick.
Thank you, Luke. And yeah, thank y'all, IJ folks. Really excited to be here. My name is Jana, and yeah, I'm the policy associate with California Black Power Network. And so, we're handling all of our policy work, whether that be on the current immediate, legislative cycle, and then also thinking about our kind of long-term, policy visions and goals. And yeah, I've just been with the team for about 8 months. And prior to that, I was actually doing work in kind of the restorative justice, decarceration space, and a lot of that work focused around youth. And so, yeah, really happy to be here.
Sure, let's hop in. So, California Black Power Network, who we are and how we got here. So, California Black Power Network is a united ecosystem of over 40 grassroots organizations working together to change the lived conditions of Black people in California and the greater United States as well. We have organizations throughout the entire state, from Trinity County all the way down to San Diego. You guys are a statewide partner with Initiate Justice, so you guys are right on that list in the top right here. I don't have the cursor mode, so I can't highlight y'all, but y'all are definitely on there. We got plenty of organizations wherever you're phoning into from today. So please get it connected with the organizations in your area, and please reach out to us if you need help getting connected to those organizations. But how we got here and why the California Black Power Network exists, right? So Black history and the Black struggle in the United States, and of course California as well, has seen various eras of gains as well as a backlash era that follows it directly. So starting in the 1960s, we have the civil rights movement with great gains for the Black communities, of course. We have the Black Power movement with great gains as well. And then we have a great Black backlash in the 1980s and the 1990s that led to the loss of rights, mass incarceration, and in California specifically, the loss of various rights for Black people specifically in California as well. But this was followed by another era of great gain for Black people in the United States with the Left Behind and the Black Lives Matter movement. And we can see ourselves entering into another era right now in 2025 of a great backlash movement in the United States, a right-wing backlash for sure. So we're trying to cement this because we ourselves in this ecosystem, because we know that decades of disinvestment and inequities have led to the lived conditions of Black people in this, not only the state, but in the United States. And we have to work to maintain our gains and cut our losses for sure. So we see these in the education inequities within our schools. We see this with the environmental impacts. We see this with the low wages and poverty, health inequities, immigration policy and enforcement, housing crisis, over policing and incarceration, and our crumbling infrastructure in our communities. These are just some of the various ways that Black people in this country and state are disproportionately affected by the negatives within our state legislature and our communities. This is not an accident or coincidence. We see, especially in the current era, we see that these things are systematically planned. They are meticulously planned out in order to incentivize our people from participating in our economies, in our communities, and to stop a true Black movement and Black liberation in this state. So we have to remember that it's not an accident or coincidence that Black people have been put in these disincentivized positions, in these lack of opportunity as well. We cannot forget that. So for California Black Power Network specifically, we started out as the African American Civic Engagement Project. This transitioned into the California Black Census and Redistricting Hub under Cali Calls, and now we are known as the California Black Power Network, bringing a true force to the statewide level for Black people in the state of California. So our role, right? We're aligning the Black organizing ecosystem and increasing that resiliency and scale of impact that's already there in order to improve the lived conditions of Black Californians in the state. We're building power to dismantle systemic anti-Black racism in the state, as well as a united movement on the national level. This can be seen through some of our work that we did in the 2024 election, such as our voting no on Prop 6, such as our work to vote yes on Prop 5, and our yes on Prop. My bad. It's been a little bit, it's been a couple months, but on our work to keep Prop 47 on the books, that was so important and an unfortunate loss for us. But we are doing this work by engaging our community, by keeping people informed on the issues that matter to us, and by keeping people engaged in what's actually happening in the policy on the local, state, and national level. The central focus of CBPN is our policy development advocacy, our civic engagement and our organizing, our narrative and culture segments, and our protest and direct action. So for each of these, policy and development and advocacy, we have Jana and Kristen Nimmers. They're working on the policy, and we're getting some power up in the Capitol. Civic engagement and organizing, throughout the year, we run multiple civic engagement programs that really focus in on our communities, get people engaged out and come out to show some unity and show some strength in the community. And then our narrative and culture, we have social media pages, and we have multiple groups that we work with on our social media pages in order to get the word out on whatever our current narrative is. Going back to the election, no on Prop 36 was a huge push that we had throughout the entire run up to the election. And it really changed a lot of minds on that issue, our social media. And our protest and direct action, we have our day at the Capitol coming up, which I'm sure John will touch on in a bit. But that's just one of our instances of direct action. Organizing the power of Black grassroots organizations, leaders, and residents is the name of the game for the California Black Power Network, and we stay true to our mission year in and year out. So we try to do this through what is known as integrated voter engagement, as made by Anthony Thigpen and built on by everybody that has come after. In the organizing world, we have this multi-year strategy that's aimed to increase the voter participation of folks most impacted, Black people here in this instance, and engaging people year-round to build relationships, educate on issues, and motivate to get involved. We work to involve people beyond voting, so we invite people out to join our campaigns, join our community events, and to join our organizing efforts. This is led by our local community-based organizations that have their deep roots and embrace integrated voter engagement as a core part of their organizing strategy and ongoing work. We can see this, our orgs in LA, we have I believe we have 12 to 15 orgs in LA. Each one of them is running a great program almost year round on getting civic engagement out into the community and to bring those individuals into their own ecosystems. We develop grassroots leaders through that, and that helps lead the organizing. And we're using voter engagement technology and databases to increase the scale of and the systemic tracking of the analysis of our voter engagement. So through utilizing tools like PDI, through Call Hub, and a couple of the other tools within our grasps, we expedite the process of reaching out to individuals, and we can bring more people on. For instance, in the November 2024 civic engagement leading up to the election, we contacted and got IDs for over 68,000 people in just that election alone. And those are going directly back to our organizers in the community within their organizations to reach out to those individuals and to bring them into their community. So, really impactful work. And this is done through two lenses. So we have the long term, the power building that we're going for, which I sort of just went into around the ongoing neighborhood organizing infrastructures. We're tapping into groups that already exist in the community that are already doing great work and trying to expand on their membership in their bases in order to have them bring a greater voice to any issue or key issues within the community that they need a greater voice on. And this comes into the short term and the issue based, where if there is a specific issue that we need to activate our bases around, we can do it like that because we already have that ecosystem around them built up. Those 68,000 contacts are going to be available for individuals to reach out to in those organizations and to get people out for a key issue within the community, whatever that may be. I think this is where we can transition over to Jana for a portion here and go into our 7 main issue areas as well as our policy section of what we're doing on that side.
Yeah, and I think though before I launch in, because I'm not able to like see necessarily the chat and everything, so before I launch into the policy portion, I'll maybe pause to see if there was like any questions that came through or anything like that.
No questions in the chat, but I don't know if anyone has questions so far. Feel free to raise your hand or again, feel free to drop it in the chat. We do have a hand. So go ahead and feel free to come off mute and what's your question?
Definitely. I was wondering if the California Black Power Network has an idea of any policies that they're going to be supporting this year. I know that you guys did a lot of work around yes on Prop 6 and no on 36. And I was just wondering if you have an idea of any policies that you guys are going to be trying to advocate for this year.
Yes, we do, and that is definitely, yeah, we'll be talking about some of that, yeah, in the next portion for sure. And so, yeah, if there was no other questions related to any of that, I can go ahead and get started with the
I,
policy portion.
I had a question, Jonna. And just I know you mentioned the civic engagement workshops, and I did see on there, I believe there was it during like non-election cycles. Is there a way for our community members to get involved or like sign up for one of those, or how would you suggest for our community members to stay connected in regards to like some of those trainings that y'all would be having and things of that nature for this year?
I think I can jump in on this one. Definitely follow our social media. It's Black Power Network on Instagram, Blue Sky, and any other platform that may be out there. It's Black Power Network, BLK Power Network. On there, we're posting all of our community-led events, and we're constantly reposting the organizations in the various regions that we support, whether it be LA Can and Los Angeles area, COPE, or starting over in the IE. Some of our great orgs, the community interventions in the Central Valley, or any of our various orgs throughout the rest of the state. Tap into our social media, and from there, there's a huge network that you can tap into for whatever orgs are relevant for your region, wherever you're phoning in for. We also have our website where there's various places to find the exact orgs that are available in your region. So please tap into those resources as well. I can go ahead and I am screen sharing, but after I'm done, I will send that link to our site into our social media.
Yeah, and that's something also like I'll make sure to have it, and then we could also send it for our members on our recap email when we send it back over, so that way we could include some of those resources and ways to stay connected for you all.
Excellent. Okay. And so then were there any other questions related to any of the things that Luke shared, or should I jump in with the policy?
Not seeing any other questions. So feel free to hop right in.
All right. Awesome. Okay, so yes, kind of moving into a little bit of some of our policy work that we do. So here you see these are so basically we have say seven main issue areas or kind of like buckets that our work, the things that we focus on and prioritize will, fall into one of these categories. So housing, education, healthcare, real safety, healthy built environment, democracy, economic opportunity. And then of course, there's often overlap between them as well. So Luke, go ahead to go to the next slide. And so initially I'll kind of start off with some of our larger, more generalized goals for 2025 in terms of our policy goals. And so the first one being establishing, California Black Power Network's long-term agenda as a resource for the movement and as a standard for what's needed to change the lived conditions of Black Californians. And so we're going to be rolling that out in, a public webinar event to sort of like publish our statewide policy agenda. And I will a little bit, just a bit in the presentation, I will talk a little bit more about what our long-term agenda kind of is and what's involved in that. But basically, it's sort of our overall vision that's kind of going to drive our work. And we're trying to look out 10 years into the future. And so then the second of our 2025 policy goals around, advancing key legislation for Black equity and reparations, that's in alignment with our collective vision and the long-term policy agenda that we'll talk about. The next one is to continue establishing relationships in the Capitol, through engagement with key legislators, at the governor's office. And then, yes, we will be having some days of action in the Capitol this year. And so, yeah, just, continuing to work to sort of strengthen those relationships specifically in the governor's office, especially to, uplift budget questions and, thinking about creating new revenue streams, things like that. And, doing all of this in service of, continuing to build power and push our, collective statewide agenda. The next goal being, a successful partnership with Greenpeace on their California Climate Resiliency Project to engage grassroots leaders and the community on key climate issues. And so this is, a project that will be working with Greenpeace for the entire year. And so specifically, it's going to be focusing on like the impact of climate change and environmental factors on Black workers. And so we will be engaging the network and, participating in that project. And then our final sort of general goal is, preparing for the 2026 midterm election cycle by engaging in, early and often voter advocacy, kind of some of the things that Luke was mentioning before. And so, yes, Luke, you could go to the next slide. I'll talk a little bit about now. So I mentioned our long-term agenda, also known as the LTA, and so kind of what that is and what role that plays like within the policy work that we do. So in terms of, this is our long-term Black policy agenda, for the state of California. And at the end of the day, it's informed by our mission, first and foremost, which is, to change the lived conditions of Black people and communities, to dismantle systemic and anti-Black racism, and to unite and use the collective grassroots power of Black organizations and communities across the state. So that's kind of, the ultimate widest umbrella. And so then from there, our long-term agenda is kind of what we use as our guiding star as we're navigating through this work. And so the elements or components that make up our long-term agenda, the LTA, is first our long-term vision, which again is informed by, our mission. And then the next part, and the next element being the long and short-term structural reforms. And so we have like a structural reform ranking system basically that we use to kind of like assess, how the various policies are gonna contribute to or take away from, building Black progressive movement and the Black base. And when we're talking about, structural reforms, the definition sort of that we use and that we're working by is, that these are policies that change systems by addressing, root causes of racism, and as well as shifting power and resources into our communities. And so we're trying to think about things that are accomplishable within a 5 to 10 year time frame. And so then, the pieces to that would also be, the stepping stone battles. And so these are, like more short and midterm battles that, within the next 2 to 5 years that are attainable within that time, and that help us move towards these more, long-term 5 to 10 year goals. And then the final piece, sort of our long-term agenda is also the power analysis and the landscape assessment. And, that's where, we're utilizing that to really like assess the current political conditions, also assess like our collective power, as well as, are there missing community voices, are there any certain communities' voices who are missing? We're also using, the power analysis to think about like battles that we can win sooner than later that, move us towards those long-term goals. And so, yeah, in terms of like our statewide policy advocacy, this long-term agenda kind of informs the type of policies, that we're supporting. It, drives what bills and things that, we are giving our support to. And then, yes, so in May of this year, early May, we are going to be hosting a lobby day at the Capitol. We are in the works of, putting together the details of all of that right now. But yes, definitely, stay tuned. There will be, some announcements coming out for that, for a big lobby day in May. And so if we can go to the next slide. Thank you. And so, yeah, just to talk a little bit more specifically, I know there was maybe some questions around like AB 544, and then I'll also just talk about, some of our other priorities, kind of in the, the criminal justice arena. And so yeah, thinking back to, AB 544 and the fact that, we did support it as, as a network. So as you saw from like the top 7 issues, like democracy and what we call real safety, but that's criminal justice. It's just internally we refer to it as real safety. So democracy and real safety are both, are 2 out of the 7 of our top issue areas. And so we're always looking, to support things that are like, that intersect, right, between multiple of our top issue areas. And so, with AB 544, with the democracy work that we're doing, it's like Black folks are already considered like a harder to reach population when it comes to like voter engagement. And then our community members who are on the inside are even harder to reach. And so we're really thinking about ways of like, reducing those types of barriers, and, being mindful and doing engagement around things like that is really key to, building statewide Black political power. We really believe that, representation in a democratic government means all community members, should see themselves reflected and embodied like within the policymaking process. And so, we support reenfranchisement. And so, of course, when Prop 17 passed, that was a really big win. And we saw, AB 544 as really building off of, that win. And so in the upcoming cycle, there will be, AB 544 is potentially going to be going back up. And so we are prepared to support it again if so. Assemblymember Bryan is kind of going back and trying to address some of the budget issues with it, which that's why it was vetoed, by Newsom last time, was, claimed that it was for budgetary reasons. And so Assemblymember Bryan is, kind of going back and trying to relook at some of that. So we're definitely tracking that, and we'll be supporting it if it, comes back forward this year. And then some of the other priorities that we have, again, related to the, real safety or, criminal justice space is, supporting increased wages for incarcerated firefighters, supporting the Pathways to Justice Reform Act, which is the repeal juvenile 3 strikes. And then there's like I think 1 or 2 bills related to, like decreasing the power of ICE, some things related to, supporting our immigrant communities. And then some of the larger and more general focuses that are sort of coming out of the research we're doing for the long-term agenda. There's, some sort of buckets that are rising to the top. And so these are buckets that we're going to be figuring out how to engage with in more of like a consistent long-term way. And so some of those are, like police out of schools and ending the criminalization of, of our youth, as well as removing law enforcement from traffic safety. And then currently, and so, yeah, so these are some of the things that are arising currently as priorities, but as we are, as the policy team, we're still currently right now in the process of finalizing what that list of priority bills is going to be. So yeah, we're currently engaged in doing that right now. And yeah, just really excited to keep, supporting our different network members and doing this good work. And I'll pause there to see if there's any questions.
Thanks so much, both of y'all. Definitely feel free to raise your hands or drop questions in the chat. I do want to flag real quickly a couple of questions that were dropped into the chat as you were speaking, Jana. And so one question is, will there be any training or community informational sessions that CPBN will be hosting regarding the impacts of Prop 36?
Not that we have on the docket at this time, and not in terms of hosting anything related to that, at least not yet. Yeah.
Awesome.
But
Thank
on
you.
that point, we do have a we are going to be running a social media push around really encapsulating what was happening with the wildfires and how there's uh, the decrease in the wages and the incarcerated firefighters that were fighting the fires. That is a great injustice that was done in the community in LA, and it provides us with a great point that we can point to that exactly exemplifies why this forced labor within our prison system is wrong. And that will be a very powerful narrative for people to be able to look at and then understand how our vote affects it as well. So that will be some reflection on Prop 36 that we're going to be having that will provide that great real, that's a real thing that you can look at and see.
Awesome. Thank you. And just a caveat, and to also add to that point, CPBN might not be hosting anything specifically, but remember that they are made up of an entire network of organizations. So remembering the list that they shared earlier, if you happen to be in the area of one of their network organizations, definitely follow them and check in with them because there's a good chance that one of them may be doing a Prop 36 like informational session or something for the community. So don't forget to follow all the organizations that are in the network. The second question that came up in the chat, and then I'll move to the folks that have their hands raised, is what are there any goals towards public safety reform? And I know that there's some policy priorities on here already, but wondering if there's anything more specific you might be able to speak to. This person stated that they were thinking with the new administration rolling out the removal of federal DEI employees and the halt of DOJ's work as it relates to consent decrees, settlement agreements with law enforcement agencies. So I don't know if you're able to speak to any of that.
And can you, okay, and just can you circle back? So what is the what was the ask, or what was the
The initial
question within
question
that?
was any goals towards public safety reform. So you definitely have some public safety stuff on it on your slides here. So maybe I don't know if you can just elaborate on those particular goals or any a bit more, if possible.
Yeah, so these are, so the ones that would be here on this slide, like these are the ones that are arising as of this point in time out of our research, like related to, again, like kind of our long-term agenda work. So like this stuff is coming out of like discussions with community members, discussions with, people in our network. And so some of our things that we're going to be focusing on in the area of, like, real safety, criminal justice, just different things like that will be focused around these. And we are, like I mentioned before, we are going to be having a public rollout of our long-term agenda that will lay out a lot of specifics related to these things. And so that is going to include like a webinar and some like materials and different things that gets a lot more into the details once we're in the process right now of working on these like research memos that's going to inform sort of the rollout we're doing around this LTA work. And so yeah, it's that stuff is being built. So yeah, some of the things here would be some of the things that we're focused on now, and then there will be more to come. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And then I will go over to the folks that have their hands raised. And then also for anybody else, if questions are coming up for you, please feel free to raise your hand or come off mute, and we will definitely bring you up on stage. So I think the first person I saw with their hand raised was, and please forgive me if I mispronounce your name, is it Ipiani?
Yes, good job, Ipiani. And
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. And I've been in space with each of you, Brother Luke and Miss Morehouse. We shared space a few times. I just wanted to kind of put on your radar because I know that the coalition has was supporting yes on Prop 6, and I don't know if you guys are aware that Assembly Member Wilson is going to be running that again. I dropped it in the chat. AB 628. So I'm hoping that you guys consider supporting that initiative again to try to remove forced labor or involuntary servitude / slavery from from our people that are incarcerated. So I just wanted to put that on your radar.
Thank you. Yes, nice to see you, Ipiani. Good to see you. And yes, thank you so much for dropping the link for that in the chat. Absolutely. We can add it to our list of, if it might be on there already, but if it is not, I'll definitely make sure we add it to the ones we're vetting right now. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm actually surprised they have it as an AB and not an ACA, but that's probably just a typo. So who knows? Next person that had their hand raised, and again, forgive me if I don't say your name right. Is it Anako or Anako?
Yes, yes. I want to
Which
say
one? The first one or the second
Enoco.
one? Inoka. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for having this. There was three things during the voting that I noticed and saw all the way till the day of voting was people had misinformation and they really didn't understand the importance. And I noticed that when I'm canvassing or I'm talking to people of color, they think their vote don't matter, and just educating people on the local, how does it impact them. And once I was able to explain those things, like really simplified, like your school, what your mayor do, each of those roles, because a lot of people don't have Civics 100 anymore. They don't get that. And then I end up transporting people just based on giving them the basics to go vote in the election at the last minute, because they said, well, I didn't know that. I didn't understand. They just thought that their vote didn't matter. So I'm even saying now, if we can make sure and not assume that everybody knows the importance of voting and how does it impact as far as money, as and within their communities, also on with the firefighters, because I'm very familiar with the firefighters in the correction is when they're honoring, and they are going to honor those firefighters and do something special, we need to be hitting these mayors in LA County, because everyone kept focusing on Bass, but people forgot Altadena they have a mayor. Malibu, all of these different areas had mayors and people in charge, but they kept focusing on Bass. And so if we can hit these mayors up and saying, when you're honoring these firefighters, you honor those who were from the correctional, because they were the ones going up the hill. They were the ones going in the homes, getting out people's valuables and putting them out. I mean, and someone did do an opt-ed on it, like a brief, but it went under the radar. So our voices and letting them know when they're giving awards to the firefighters, do not forget those who are behind the wall. They need to be acknowledged too, even if it's just sending them a certificate. And if they don't do it, we should do it.
Yeah, completely agree. Touching on the first point that you covered around people not understanding the importance of our vote, that's where it's important to remember that's intentional. That's been years and years of building. So in order to unlearn, for people to unlearn that and do that thought process, our social media has really ramped up in the last about 5 to 6 months, but it takes more than 3 to 4 months right before an election to unlearn all of those pieces around the importance of voting. Additionally, on Prop 36 and Prop 6, what the way that they were written and the advertisements that were being funneled out to people were incredibly confusing, to a point where people believed that a vote of they were voting for the opposite way of what they believed, and it's all intentional. So our civic engagement going into the next election, not only for the next 2 years for our primary, but the general, and then even past that, our social media and our education that we're trying to run through CBPN as one of our core tenants. We're going to keep that at the front line and continue to emphasize that within our social media, because we can't solely rely on our civic engagement. As you're noting, I believe you said you're a canvasser within the November election. Everybody that we talked to agreed with us, almost everybody. I think we had a 72% agreement on Prop 36, Prop 6, and Prop 5. That is not what we saw in the election, right? That is a world away from what we saw in this election results on the election night. We saw a completely different narrative, and we saw a completely different outcome, because we can only reach a finite amount of people within that 3 to 4 months right before an election. We need to be hitting the people now before an election and educating them on what our values are, just how the right wing is educating people on what their values are. And that's one thing that we really took to heart from this election. One thing that we're really working on now to have that never happen again. We're hitting the ground now, so we don't have to do harder later.
And you know what, too, I did? I always go to the opposition and sit in their circles and see what they're doing and how they're doing. And so that's how, like with the Prop 36, the 6, and saw, the opposition. And then I was able to use both sides of those things. And even some people that were at the meetings for the opposition did not know, just about different things the governor had already signed dealing with retail theft and just a bunch of other things. How was it going to be funded? Where the money was going to come from? So I think sometimes, just as a fly on a wall, we just don't go in our circles where everybody agrees with us. I like to go to places where people, they don't agree with us. They don't agree with anything. And I've slowly seen, from educating them, being consistent, not badgering them with my agenda, that they begin to see, what is it that you do? Oh, maybe I'll take a look at it. But I don't go in badgering them with my agenda. But I do sit and listen to the opposition, because I want to know, why are you choosing this? Why are you going this away? Maybe I'm missing something. And a lot of times it's misinformation, or it deals a lot with fear.
100%. And most people veer to the right now. Right now, we're in a very big wave of people being right wing, just because of the exposure to that side. All of our social media platforms, most of the mainstream media is incredibly right wing right now, or at least a corporate interest. So the only way to fight that is through having our own side be magnified, having our own side get emphasized through our social media pages, through some coverage in the mainstream media, through direct action. That's going to get people involved in our narrative and have them do exactly what you're saying. Oh, maybe I'm gonna look into this. Maybe I'm gonna take some time out of my day to see maybe I am wrong on this, you know? And that's how we're gonna bring people over to our side, and that's how we're gonna win some elections and get these things across the finish line as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, great segue into like one of the questions we did want to ask you all. Like, is we know last year was a tough election year, right? We felt it. I know we as us as an organization have talked about it and different things and strategies coming for the future, and really want to say really love to see what y'all have planned and like even thinking of the next election cycle already and preparing for that. Right, the educational piece, the civic engagement piece is so important. And I also just wanted to say, like, what do you think it will take for the people of California to finally say no on forced labor, like the tough on crime responses, that rhetoric that's going around, right? We've seen what happened with Prop 36. Um, so like I would say like how do you all see us like really regaining that progress that we have made for the last decade? We know they're going to come back again this year. We're anticipating them coming back with these tough on crime bills again. So I would ask y'all the question like, what do you think we need to do as a community, as members, and how do we get that word out there?
Definitely, I'll just do a little piece on what we're doing on the civic engagement side of this, and then I'll pass it over to Jonna to answer the policy side of this. But right now, one of our biggest focuses is going to be the wildfires that people are being hit by. We're running a civic engagement program in order to get these people resources, in order to get the people that were affected in these fires, into a safe area where they can restart. And that's our primary goal right now. Um, as it gets further away from the fires and as people become safe and have their resources again, we can start utilizing that narrative piece and showing that the incarcerated firefighters throughout that effort is a direct result of our failure to stop Prop 36 from passing. That is a one-to-one issue that we can definitely push a narrative on to show the direct effects of how we're voting in these elections is affecting people's real lives. We cannot allow that piece to fall to the wayside because that is going to be one of our primary ways to go back against this tough on crime narrative. It was seen by everybody in the state of California and most of the people throughout the United States. And we need to really hone in on the injustices that was faced by these incarcerated firefighters. I agree with what Inako said around honoring the incarcerated firefighters that were fighting that fire, but that's simply not enough to give them a certificate. We need to give these people true justice and real justice through policy that actually impacts their lives in a positive way.
I have a question for Mr. Blackburn. Have you ever served time in prison?
I have not, no.
Okay. Anyway, I'm Dr. Ashanti. I just got through serving 27 years in prison, 1995 to 2022, on a 3-strike case. My 3rd strike was for joyriding, driving without the owner's consent. Recent 1085, 27 years. I wasn't released through the parole board. I was released through Dr. George Gascon's 3-strike policy. Anyone that had a 3rd strike, like where it was non-violent, non-serious, he recalled 1,500 cases for resentencing. So when I went back to court in 2022, they reduced my joyride. One carries 1, 2, 3 years in prison as a felon, carries 1 to 12 months of county jail. So they resentenced me to 2 years, 27 years in prison, 25 years credit discharge, no parole, no probation. At any rate, dealing with the issue, I've been telling people it's a waste of time. While I was in there, I was able to get blessed to get my associate bachelor's, master's, got 2 doctorates in there, a PhD, doctor of theology, and religion, and a JD, Juris Doctor of Law. When it came to this, what I thought was a complete wasted effort, make a long story short, the repeal of the what they call the slave amendment in the California Constitution. The point is, the reason why that was a waste effort, it didn't matter if that passed or not. The federal Constitution, Article 6, the Supremacy Clause, it outweighs all the other 50 constitutions, the state constitutions in America. So the state prisons already had authority to have the prisons classified in the status of a slave. That's been in there since Abraham Lincoln, the 13, 14, 15 men. Actually, they passed it after he was assassinated. My point is that those are the only people that are classified as slaves in America. If you're a convicted criminal, you don't have to be a felon; it can just be a misdemeanor. You don't even have to go to jail. You can actually be convicted of a crime. You're released on probation. As long as you're on the status of parole, prison, or probation, one of those three P's, you're automatically a slave or indentured servant. So that had no force and effect on the state government because it's in the federal constitution. The guards had authority to push that. As far as you talk about forced labor, that's been resolved. It's another issue. When you go to prison as a convicted criminal, they're looking at you have to go through the redemption process, basically a retribution
Sorry, Mr. Shanti. I'm sorry, Mr. Shanti. Your audio is a little bit choppy. So wondering if you have a specific question for the folks here tonight.
No, I'm making a statement in regards
Oh,
to statements that are being made here regarding laws
understand.
that were taken before the legislature. So I'm addressing the issue.
Understandable.
Yeah. So
We are using this time for questions right now. So respectfully, I'm going to have to ask you to not make statements. We are an abolitionist organization here at Initiate Justice. So just as a teachable moment, a learning moment for everybody, and even folks that might be new in this space. So one of the things for us as an organization is we do strongly advocate for the ending of incarceration. And so part of that is to also advocate for the ending of forced labor, not just in our state of California, but also in our nation as well. There are many other states that do not have sort of like this forced labor within their constitution. So I am going to strongly push back on that and ask that you refrain from making statements. And if you have a specific question for our guests, I'm going to ask you to ask the question. But respectfully, if you do not have a question, I'm going to ask you to remain on mute so they can proceed with the rest of their presentation, if that is okay.
But you say you're an abolition organization. Inside this organization, there are no pro and cons opinions in regards to whatever measures that the IJ Initiative Justice put forward.
Respectfully, I'm going to put you on mute because that's just it's not appropriate to discuss right now. So I respect that you have opinions, but right now it is not the appropriate time to share those opinions. So thank you very much. I appreciate you for being here. I will drop my email in the chat, and I am more than happy to offline with you about anything else that you would like to discuss outside of this meeting. So appreciate you for being here. But we are going to move on. I don't see any other questions in the chat or
And I was also gonna just add one last little piece to what Luke had mentioned,
go ahead.
just in terms of thoughts about pushing back against, right, so Prop 6 failing, Prop 36 passing, this, backlash, tough on crime. So it's just something that we've also been thinking and talking a lot about, like from the policy perspective, is the importance of having really strong cohesion between like our policy work and our narrative and comms work. Because like, so in terms of pushing back against, this, swing towards, the tough on crime rhetoric and stuff, getting a handle on the narrative, doing really strong narrative work, and then having our policy work and like comms and narrative work moving together. So that's just, I'll add that, like in terms of, doing the pushback and building the power that we need to build to start putting forward policies to, create safeguards or different things. That's just, something we're thinking a lot about, is how to really have strong cohesion between having really strong narrative work and moving that collectively with the policy work we're doing around, keeping our people safe in a, post Prop 36 California. So I'll just add that as well.
Thank you so much. And I know y'all spoke a little bit briefly about your sort of a lot of the goals being focused on, LA, the LA wildfires and supporting incarcerated firefighters this year. So I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more about how y'all are leveraging this moment to build sustained power and policy shifts for impacted communities in Los Angeles as it relates to the wildfires.
So yeah, definitely looping back on the points I made, we are definitely reaching out to those people through our civic engagement programs to make sure they have the resources, but we're also taking that narrative in order to sort of to the similar point I was saying before, we are building a narrative off of the failure of Prop 30 or the passing of Prop 36 that allowed for incarcerated firefighters to work for pennies on the dollar in order to fight these fires. That's going to be one of our main pushes, and that's going to be one of our main narrative pieces that we're going to use to transform the thought processes that we've been experiencing since Prop 47 passed in 2014. There's been a continual push since Prop 47 passed from the right on why tough on crime is where California needs to go. You can hear about a single water bottle being taken from a random stand without a Fox News article or a right wing article saying this is why we need tough on crime in California. So we are going to combat that by saying this is a complete injustice that we are experiencing with real lives being affected.
Thank
And yeah, and I'll
Oh,
just
go
add to that as well. Yeah. In terms of like some of that deeper like power building that's coming out of this moment as well, there's lots of different, whether it's local or state level like coalitions that are forming, that are thinking about equitable rebuild, particularly focused around like Black Altadena, and what is a sustainable but equitable rebuild process look like, protecting folks, from some of the kind of like vulture investors, that are, going to be coming in. And yeah, so there's, these coalitions and entities that are forming that with the intention of not just having it be for like immediate aid, immediate relief, but being in this for the long haul to like build power and make sure that like Black Altadena, working class Altadena, people of color in Altadena are able to like stay there and rebuild there. And also, I wanted to add on that too, and I'll try to drop the link in the chat. There is one resource for, I'm not sure who on the call is based in Los Angeles, and if people have been directly impacted or know folks that have been directly impacted by the LA wildfires, but the Red Cross, sorry. The Red Cross has a resource, a financial aid that we're trying to let folks know about because this particular level of aid, which can be up to $1,200 per family, if you have an address that was in the burn zone. But the deadline to apply for this is February 14th. So yeah, if you know anyone who has an address in the burn zone, whether the home burned down or not, they have the potential to be eligible for this money. And then another thing that I'll add is for households that had more than one family in one household. So like if there was parents and a child, and then maybe an uncle and an aunt and another child, uh, each family, or maybe there's, grandparents in the unit, something like that. Each family would be eligible to apply, even though they shared one household. So yeah, that's just another resource. Again, it runs out on the 14th, and we're just trying to, there's been, in terms of the equitableness of, aid and relief, there's been some questions around people actually getting access to the FEMA aid versus I know directly like people who lost homes that have been able to receive this aid from the Red Cross. So yeah, just a resource that we're letting folks know about.
Awesome. I had a question too in regards to AB 544 by Assemblymember Bryan, which we collectively worked on last year and really prioritized, I know, alongside CBP, CPBN. I'm sorry about that. Which would have had 3 counties start up pilot programs for voting polling sites in their county jails. We know this bill was vetoed by our governor here. And so recently, this week, California Secretary of State Shirley Weber designated us the DAPO, Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation of parole operations, to have them directly as like the voter registration agency for people that are coming out on parole. I think someone spoke about it earlier, the misinformation. I know various people that are still currently on parole still believe that they don't have their voting rights. Just wanted to ask, like, how will this recent development really impact your work this year?
Well, I'm not sure because that's the first I'm hearing of that. But yeah, is that kind of a very recent
It literally just came out this morning, I think. And
oh.
so yeah, so let me drop, and for everybody that's in the meeting, thank you, F. Naeem. The ACLU dropped an article and it was a press release. And so we were like, oh my gosh, that's really exciting. I wonder
Yeah,
how
that's
that's gonna,
amazing.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, yeah, any more access of, getting voter engagement to folks that, have a record or, and yeah, getting that information to those folks is a win, so that's like absolutely amazing. And I'm sure we'll have, great implications on the work. It can hopefully, set a precedent to get more of those or, so, and I'm sure y'all had y'all's hands in that IJ of helping to push that forward. So congrats on that. Like, that's really great.
No, I think just to remind everyone here in this chat today, and you all, I think we collectively do it. I think the power of us coming together. I know Jana, you and I have met before at a different convening, and we had some of these conversations. And I mean, that's why we are so grateful to have you all here today. Really showing the importance of coming together and working together as a collective, right? We're up against the monster, especially thinking about, election year in 2 years now, right? But really getting people educated, civically involved in their communities, whether that means just hosting some people over at your house and giving them some information about a bill that we might be working on, or the bill that you guys might be working on, or something that affects our community is really important to have uh, be spreading that information to whoever it might be. It might be someone you met at the grocery store. I always said it, having these important conversations and just really coming together collectively in order to make this noise and make this, because we know we're up against a monster. We know we're the pendulum swinging and we're facing, a lot of pushback. But again, I always remind everyone that we are stronger together, and we have to come together in our communities, even if it's in these little boxes here in these Zoom meetings, but bring it out to our communities as well. And I think that's why I love that you all are going to be having some more of these civic engagements, these educational pieces, these gatherings and things of that nature. IJ, as well, as I mentioned earlier, we're planning on having these for people to get involved, really. And I see Ipiani, your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, in regards to what brother Mr. Ortiz was just expressing, as well as Anoco, um, LSPC, which was the one of the leads on ACA 8 and getting that through. The learnings that we had with sadly yes on Prop 6 failing is that the time is now to do this education, and it's so key to make sure to get rid of those myths that people are under about not having the right to vote. So the time to build is right now until election a year or so from now. But I also just want to point out that last year, and I don't know how long it's been taking place, but in LA County, they had a pilot program where they were going into the jails to allow people to vote that had that are waiting trial, that haven't been convicted of anything. And it was just a pilot program that was happening in Los Angeles County. But I've been trying to seed in the different coalition spaces effort to make that the standard for all 58 counties throughout the state of California, because the people still have the right to vote, and everyone that has the right to vote should have access to vote. So that's just something I want to put on you guys' radar. I'll reach out to some of my ACLU contacts to after seeing this great news right here and try to make that push. But I just want to, put that in the atmosphere as well.
Thank y'all so much. We really appreciated this. This was fantastic. I was reading some of the comments, and just like people are really, really grateful that y'all are here and that y'all are doing this work. Are there any final questions for our guests tonight before we move into our close? All right, seeing none.
I do have a question. I do
Oh,
have a
go ahead,
question.
Evgeny.
I was just wondering, with this work being so stressful, and this is kind of to all of us, what are some of the methods that you use for self-care, just to not get caught up in the craze of the world, to make sure that you are also filling in the fields of your dreams? Because we issues, like the Bible says, the poor will always be with us. There will always be issues to advocate for, but it's a once in a lifetime gift for us. So I just want to know how you guys are taking care of yourselves as we all are doing this work.
A great question. I'll let our guests answer that first if y'all feel called to.
Sure. Yes, that is a great question, Ipiani. It's always good to take that minute to reflect, like, wait, am I doing the things that I'm supposed to do to be taking care? I um move emotions and process things out through movement, and I need to move my body. So whether that is a one person dance party in my living room, or whether that is going out to find some DJ to go dancing to on the weekend, I try at the very least once a week to have a dance party somewhere, whether that is alone at home or out and about. So yeah, movement meditation for me, definitely. I'll pass it to my colleague, Luke.
I'm working on this part. This is an area of growth I could definitely have. But I stay in the gym. I think it's super positive. It's just a space of positive people that you're going to always get positivity out of. Great uh, outlet for just energy, stress, everything. And you also get results over time, and that's great. So that's definitely a space that I rely on heavily.
That's dope. Efrain, do you want to share what you do?
I'm probably the worst person because I'm horrible at this and I'm constantly reminded. I'm trying to go back into what I did when I was incarcerated. Taking time at the beginning or the end of my day, setting aside 15, 20 minutes to just meditate, to read, to say a prayer, something of that nature, really just doing that. Especially, I would suggest for everyone, like the disconnection from social media. I think has been working for me a lot, especially with everything that's going on, especially with our communities right now, with the immigration, with the ICE and all that stuff. I've had to definitely take a break from that social media. Um, and yeah, I would always just say I love music, but just do something you love, whatever makes you feel good. Make time out of your day to do that. Whether it be 15, 20 minutes. I mentioned in the beginning we had our 5 minute meditation. That is always so refreshing to me, even those little 5 minutes. So yeah, it's a little bit of something. I just ordered a book today, so getting back into reading.
Nice. I'm simple, y'all. I like bodies of water, so the beach, a lake, a pond, a puddle, anything that I can just disconnect and be by a body of water and just feel close to nature. So that's what I do. Otherwise, I'm just walking and trying to eat right. Um, But that's what I do for self-care. Thank you for that question. And I love seeing other people drop what they're doing for self-care in the chat too. So thanks so much for participating in that, y'all. All right, we are going to move into our close. Jonna, Luke, is there any final thing y'all want to say before I close us up for the evening?
I just want to invite people to please check out our website. It has all the resources to our social media, to how to get connected to our other orgs. And if you want some cool merch, we got that too. So that's all in there. But please reach out to our social media so that you can get connected in our network. It's so important. And we have over 40, I think we're almost at 50. I think we're almost at 50 organizations for you to reach out to across the entire state. So please get connected with whoever is regional to you.
Love
Yeah,
it.
thank you for having us, and just, keep it up the work, everybody, always in solidarity.
Thank you for being here. And thank y'all for being here. Everybody, every one of y'all, for being here. We really, really appreciate y'all sharing space with us and holding space with us every first Wednesday evening of the month. So moving into our close, just a couple of really quick last minute announcements. Oh, somebody have a question?
Okay, let's put it in some hot water.
Oh, you want to just mute them, Ephraim? I think they're just talking in the background. So last minute, just remember, save the date for our community organizing workshop in LA on the 25th. We'll drop that information in the chat one more time. And then also, please do not forget to attend our monthly community meeting in March, which is next month, where we will be going over our policy package for 2025. So you do not want to miss that. We also hope to have a couple of our legislative champions in space with us. So please RSVP tinyurl.com/IJ meeting. Come hear all of the wonderful things we're going to be doing this year and how you can support. In addition, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, whatnot, please reach out to our team, any of us, myself, Ephraim, Brianna, who is not here today, but any of us, please reach out and we will get back in contact with you. But thank y'all so much for being here. Again, we appreciate it. Thank you, California Black Power Network, Jonna and Luke, for being here. That's all I have. Thank y'all. And we will see you next month.
Yeah,
So,
just wanted to mention, thank you, Jonna, Luke. Hope you see in the chat. There's a lot of love for you all for joining us there for a powerful presentation here. And look forward to continuing to collaborate with you all. And thank you all for joining us. Get connected with California Black Power Network. Stay connected with IJ. Stay connected with your community. See you all soon. Don't forget to RSVP. Appreciate you all.
Good night,
bye, y'all.
everybody.